Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 8th Canto, Chapter 4, text number 11 and 12. Please repeat after me. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Evam Shaptva Gato Agastyo. Evam Shaptva Gato Agastyo. Bhagavan Rupasanugaha. Bhagavan Rupasanugaha. Indradyumnopi Rajarshir. Indradyumnopi Rajarshir. Dishtam tad upadharayan. Dishtam tad upadharayan. Apanna kaunjarim yonim. Apannaha kaunjarim yonim. Atma smriti vinashinim. Atma smriti vinashinim. Hari archananubhavena. Hari archananubhavena. Yad gajatvepi anusmritihi. Yad gajatvepi anusmritihi. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Evam Shaptva Gato Agastyo. Bhagavan Rupasanugaha. Indradyumnopi Rajarshir. Dishtam tad upadarayan. Apannaha kaunjarim yonim. Atma smriti vinashinim. Hari archananubhavena. Tad gadatvepi anusmritihi. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Evam Shaptva Gato Agastyo. Bhagavan Rupasanugaha. Indradyumnopi Rajarshir. Dishtam tad upadarayan. Apanna kaunjarim yonim. Atma smriti vinashinim. Hari archananubhavena. Yad gajatvepi anusmritihi. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Evam Shaptva Gato Agastyo. Bhagavan Rupasanugaha. Indradyumnopi Rajarshir. Dishtam tad upadarayan. Apannaha kaunjarim yonim. Atma smriti vinashinim. Hari archananubhavena. Yad gajatvepi anusmriti. Word to word translation. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, Evam, thus, Shaptva, after cursing, Gataha, left that place, Agastyaha, Agastya Muni, Bhagavan, so powerful, Nrupa, O king, Sa Anugaha, with his associates, Indradyumnaha, King Indradyumna, Api, also, Rajarshihi, although he was a Rajarshi. Dishtam, because of past deeds, Tat, that curse, Upadharayan, considering, Apannaha, got, Kunjarim, of an elephant, Yonim, the species, Atma Smriti, remembrance of one's identity, Vinashinim, which destroys, Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Archana Anubhavena, because of worshipping, Yat, that, Gajatve, in the body of an elephant, Api, although, Anusmritihi, the opportunity to remember his past devotional service. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Shukadeva Goswami continued, My dear king, after Agastya Muni had thus cursed King Indradyumna, the Muni left that place along with his disciples. Since the king was a devotee, he accepted Agastya Muni's curse as welcome because it was the desire of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, although in his next life he got the body of an elephant, because of devotional service, he remembered how to worship and offer prayers to the Lord. Purport. This is the unique position of a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although the king was cursed, he welcomed the curse because a devotee is always aware that nothing can happen without the desire of the Supreme Lord. Although the king was not at fault, Agastya Muni cursed him. And when this happened, the king considered it to be due to his past misdeeds. Tatte anukampam susamikshamaanaha. Bhagavatam 10:14-8. This is a practical example of how a devotee thinks. He regards any reverses in life as blessings of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, instead of being agitated by such reverses, he continues his activities of devotional service, and Krishna takes care of him and enables him to be promoted to the spiritual world, back to Godhead. If a devotee has to suffer the reactions of his past misdeeds, the Supreme Lord arranges for him to be given only a token of these reactions, and very soon he is freed from all the reactions of material contamination. One should therefore adhere to devotional service, and the Lord Himself will very soon see to one's promotion to the spiritual world. A devotee should not be disturbed by unfortunate circumstances, but must continue his regular program, depending on the Lord for everything. The word upadharayan, considering, is very significant in this verse. This word indicates that a devotee knows what is what. He understands what is happening in material, conditional life. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yenam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Itinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pasyat Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gauravaktaranda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shukadeva Goswami continued. My dear king, after Agastya Muni had thus cursed King Indradyumna, the Muni left that place along with his disciples. Since the king was a devotee, he accepted Agastya Muni's curse as welcome because it was the desire of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, although in his next life he got the body of an elephant, because of devotional service, he remembered how to worship and offer prayers to the Lord. So we are in the 8th canto. And in the 8th canto, one of the very important pastimes of the Lord that is discussed. Which is that? Gajendra Moksha. Right? And so, in this particular chapter, this story particularly, first all there's a flashback kind of a thing. Because Gajendra's prayers, all that is done, and then there's a description of what exactly, who is Gajendra, what happened, kind of a thing. So I thought we'll start with the flashback and then continue with his prayers later. So here, very interesting to see how King Indradyumna is dealing with this reversal in his life. There was once a teacher, guru, who was teaching his disciples. He was saying how, everything in life is a blessing of the Lord. Even when good things happen or bad things happen, it is all the blessings of the Lord. And it was difficult for the students to understand this particular thought. And so the teacher said, they usually do this field, what do they call it? Field excursions. Field trip, huh? Field trip. So he sent them on a field trip. He said, there is one person in our town. Go meet him. I think he's one of the most unfortunate people in our town. And the students asked him, why is he the most unfortunate person? He said, when he was a small boy, he lost both his father and mother in an accident. And so he was brought up as an orphan. And then, when he was a young man, he had a big accident and then he lost his leg. And, so he's been living like that alone for so many years. Right? Just go meet him. And so they were going around, asking people, hey, where is this person? There is some person, it seems, he's got this accident and all these things. They were trying to locate him. And then they because they could not find the place. In the saw one other person was there, was a little handicapped person. They said maybe he will know who this person is. This person was, going over there, and they asked him, do you know this person? Is our guru was telling he's one of the most unfortunate people in the town. He's like this, he's like that. So that person said, come with me, I'll take you. And he took him to his house and said, hey, I am the same person. But why are you calling me unfortunate? I am the most fortunate person in this world. He said, what do you mean? See, when I was very young, both my parents died in an accident. Can you imagine a small child, orphan child, what will happen to him? But Krishna took care of me nicely. And somebody showed compassion and I was brought up nicely. And then he said, when I was a young man, I had a very terrible accident. And I lost my leg. But still God taught me, how to manage myself and take care of myself even after losing my leg. So like that, every reversal in his life, he was basically saying, God was so merciful to me. How he helped me come through this. So Srila Prabhupada used to quote his father, Gaur Mohan De used to say, if Krishna has 10 hands, if Krishna decides to, give you with all his 10 hands, how much can you take with your 2 hands? And if Krishna decides to take with all his 10 hands, how much can your 2 hands hold on to? Right? So in this story here, there are 2 interesting personalities and 2 little different stories. Right? Indradyumna is who becomes who? Becomes Gajendra the elephant. And there's also a crocodile in this story. Anybody remembers who the crocodile is? Uhu. Right? And who is Uhu? He's a Gandharva. Right? So their stories are a little different. And we need to understand this to get the proper context, of what Prabhupada is telling here in the purport. So Indradyumna Maharaj, as the verse itself says, Indradyumnopi Rajarshir. He was no ordinary person. He was a Raja Rishi. He was a king, but he was a Rishi. Right? We see this in the Vedic tradition. There's a lot of mention of Raja Rishis. And Indradyumna Maharaj ruled his king very, very nicely. He, at the right age, he left his kingdom and took to Vanaprastha. Right? And he went and built a small cottage in the forest. And there in that cottage, he was very strictly practicing his devotional practices. And, if you think about, what just happened just before this verse, I'll just read a few of those verses so that you'll understand the context of this cursing. Indradyumna Maharaj retired from family life and went to the Malaya hills, where he had a small cottage for his ashrama. He wore matted locks on his head and always engaged in austerities. Once, while observing a vow of silence, he was fully engaged in the worship of the Lord and absorbed in the ecstasy of love of Godhead. While Indradyumna Maharaj was engaged in ecstatic meditation, worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the great sage Agastya Muni arrived there, surrounded by his disciples. When the Muni saw that Maharaj Indradyumna, who was sitting in a secluded place, remained silent and did not follow the etiquette of offering him a reception, he was very angry. Agastya Muni then spoke this curse against the king. This king Indradyumna is not at all gentle. Being low and uneducated, he has insulted a Brahmana. May he therefore enter the region of darkness and receive the dull, dumb body of an elephant. When you see this, do you see anything that Indradyumna Maharaj did wrong? Anything at all he did wrong? No? Everybody sure? Huh? Children are having an interesting discussion of their own. So actually, very finely if you observe also, there is nothing I think that you can identify that he did incorrect in this thing. Right? It seems to be very, very, like he was following the book, he was following the standards. And that too, he was not just like, he's not just a sadhaka at initial stages. He was an ecstatic, he was in the ecstasy of love of Godhead. It is gone behind ruchi, asakti, he's like, seems to be in prema. Right? So he's in a very elevated state. And he was practicing a vow of silence, and then this happened. Right? So let us contrast that with Huhu's situation. Right? Huhu, what was his situation? Anybody remembers? And enjoy pulling the leg also. So become a crocodile. You can keep pulling legs your whole life. Right. Yeah. Right? Then he realized mistake, asked for some concession. And Devla Rishi says, okay, don't worry, you'll be liberated by the Supreme Lord himself. So Devala Rishi's cursing here is a compassion on Huhu. But Huhu's situation here is different. Right? Huhu is so much intoxicated by his position as a Gandharva. Right? See, this is in the Shastras, when we hear about the Vedic traditions of doing all these austerities and punya, karma and all these things, accumulating a lot of punya in this world. It's a very dangerous situation. Why? Because as soon as you accumulate punya, then you're sent to heavenly planets to go enjoy. And there, you're so caught up in the enjoyment that you can make mistakes. See, that is why we say, the Devatas, they are supposed to be in Sattva Guna. Right? But in this material world, some level of Sattva Guna is there, and then Devatas means there's a Rajoguna obviously involved over there. And then in this material world, however refined you are and say, oh, I'm going to practice enjoying this world only in a very sattvic way. But the nature of this world is such that dvandva, dualities, you will be subjected to Rajoguna and Tamoguna and you'll act in irresponsible ways. Right? So, okay, he was a Gandharva. In the heavenly planets, enjoying with women and all that, is not really considered a sinful activity. That is the pleasures of that world, And so, that was not his sin. But it is in one sense, it is violence in the Shastras say, right? It is violence on the Atma because you are taking away from the Atma's ability to be spiritual, like to be a spirit soul. But that was not really his bigger mistake. His big mistake was in his playfulness, right? Sometimes how, you're playing around and this thing, especially when there is a opposite gender involved. People get caught up, they're trying to show off and all that. And, he started to show off on Devala Rishi, right? Playing with him. And he got cursed. So, the reason I want to contrast these two different stories is to understand when we are faced with reversals in our life, how do we act? What do we do? Right? See, sometimes, it helps when you're not facing difficulties and when you are, in a sober mode to at least think through this. You should have a plan. So that when you are in the difficult situation and you're caught up in that, because you're emotional at that time, it's very difficult to very logically apply, thinking and how to think about this. Right? Have you noticed this happen? All of us face this, right? So, if you think about a decision tree, like, okay, what is the first thing you should do? Right? What do you think is the first thing we should do when we are faced with difficulties from this? Huh? Tolerate. And what will help you tolerate from this particular verse and this? Huh? Agastya Muni's curse as welcome because it was the desire of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. See, first thing is we should calm ourselves down. Right? If you don't calm yourself down, see, we should understand something. As devotees, we are trying to practice Vaishnava ways of behavior in all situations. And one of the very first things is to bring ourselves into equanimity kind of a thing. Very easy to talk, very difficult to practice. And so that is why we should learn some of these tricks, how do we, try to, learn this, what is to be done. Always, whenever we are emotional, invariably all of us get caught up in emotions. Emotions lead to extreme behaviors. Right? And so, the first thing is, one way to calm ourselves down is, this is a desire of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nothing in this world moves without the sanction of the Lord. Trunam api na chalati. So, first when you apply that, then you say, okay. Because you see, what has happened has happened. Can you go back and change the past? There's nothing you can do about what has already happened. Now you can only say, what can I do next? Indradyumna Maharaj cannot say here, I should have just, this thing. Actually, in one sense, if you look at very finely, Agastya Muni, he is such a great Muni. Okay, he went there. At least some thinking, see, we should not be offensive of great rishis like that. But I'm saying just how do you apply yourself in that situation? If you are in Agastya Muni's situation. Okay. Somebody is sitting there doing some meditation. Okay, fine. They didn't offer you respect. So what is the big deal? Is there any problem in that? If you apply Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sikshashtaka verse, Amarena Manadena Kirtaniya Sadhari. Don't expect any respect for yourself. Give respect to everyone. If you had applied that, then no problem at all. Then you would have also thought, oh, you must be doing something. Otherwise, why will you not get up? And that too, this Indradimna Maharaj, his history is known to everybody. He was a very, very famous king, by the way. There is another story of him in the Mahabharata and all that. But he's a very, very famous king. He was very pious, very, very generous in his whole thing and all that. So it was not his behavior in the past to be disrespectful to people and to be arrogant and this. Because there are many kings like that. Aren't you kings? When they have so much wealth and power. See, they say there is an English saying, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Right? Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. In fact, if you think about our current form of ruling, what is our current form of ruling? Government? Democracy. The democracy is created to weaken the powers of the main person. If you look at how the rules are set up, they don't have absolute power. Right? Okay. President is let's say in this country, the highest person is who? The president. The president is the executive head. But there is a very independent judicial system. And if you think about how this country's founding fathers wrote it, see, unlike Indian judicial system or other systems where, the appointment of the Chief Justice of India and all that is a shorter appointment. And they have some retirement age and all those things are there. In this country, a Justice of the Supreme Court is appointed for life. Literally till they die. Means they can decide to say, I'm going to give up the post. But literally till they die, you can't do anything about them. When somebody, whoever it is, right, like you got a situation for life, then you are very less subject to somebody else's vagaries. Right? So like that, they created this judicial system like that. All the Supreme Court justices are appointed for life. That is why when somebody dies, parties are all like, ooh. Because there are two opposite parties. They're trying to, make sure that their ideological people are in the Supreme Court. There was a whole interesting article in the intellectual circles about this. Do you remember who the last person who died? Supreme Court Justice? Lady, yeah. Ruth. What is her full name? Ruth? Huh? Ruth Ginsburg. What is the middle name I'm forgetting? Ruth Ginsburg. So Ruth Ginsburg was so old, I think it was like, she was 80 something. And, she was a little weak. So there was a personal fitness person assigned to keep her, muscles going and this and that. And the Democratic Party was doing everything possible to keep her, she wanted to resign many years before. She said, I am not this thing. She said, no, don't resign. Republicans are in power now. Don't resign. Don't do this. They did everything possible to keep her alive. And unfortunately, she died during Trump's presidency. And very calculated way, stump. He wanted to make sure his nomination gets selected. So he chose a woman to replace a woman. And the previous Chief Justice, he appointed 3 Chief Justices, which was like never in the history of any president has been able to do. And the previous one, Brett Kavanaugh, there was a huge fight with him with this and that. For what? He seems in his high school, in one party he did something and then finished. So much of, this thing, he did this, that, then God, all the people who are involved. Can you imagine these people in their 50s, high school, one day, what happened? They're all investigating, what happened, and this thing is being drawn out. Right? So, to keep the story short, he chose the right person like Amy, she was, and he chose a young person because she wanted that person to remain very, very devout Christian. Very devout Christian. Stellar record. Went to Harvard Law School. Everything stellar, like not even the 2 women. So difficult to find big scandals of women. They literally send a full investigative this thing on the person before they even nominate them. And then she got nominated. Like that. So what I was trying to get at is absolute power corrupts absolutely. So that's why they put so many things. Judicial system is there, this is there. Then there is a Senate, and then there is a House of Representatives. And senators, everybody doesn't retire. They only retire every 2 years. This 1/3 retires. So complicated rules they have. House of Representatives, only half get elected 2 years, other half get elected 2 years. So there's checks and balances. But Indradyumna Maharaj was an absolute king. No, nothing, absolute. Nobody to top him, nobody to stop him, nothing. But he lived a wonderful life. By Vedic principle, Raja Rishihi. At the ripe age, he said, I have to give up everything now, I'll go to the forest. And then he went and practiced, these things. So we see here, he is following everything to the dot. Right? So that is why, first thing is accept what is happening. This is the will of the Lord. And he is saying, something I must have done in my previous life. Right? There are only 2 possibilities here. Either something you have done in your previous life, or the Lord, wants to show special mercy on you. And very specially, He has created this situation so that, He can take you back to God quickly. See, God would have also just liberated him properly. He was already in prema. Why all this drama? One more life in Gajendra. No. But then how will he become famous like this? Right? Every day, all of us sitting and reading about him. The Lord wanted to glorify His devotee. We can think like that. Or it could be, there's no reference here. What exactly he had done misdeed and all that, there's no reference. Could be a misdeed, you could have done. But whose situation is different. He has done a mistake. So that is why the first thing, after we calm ourselves down, the next thing we should ask is introspection. Have we done something wrong now? Right? And if you're able to introspect, if you're able to arrive at the answer yourself, great. Otherwise, take the help of some senior devotees. Read Prabhupada's book, something. See if, because for most people, if there is some difficulty you're facing, many times, something we're doing now also could be wrong there. See, at any given time, we can always find things that we are doing wrong that we can fix. Right? So if you introspect, if you're doing something, stop doing that. Right? And then what else can you do? If you introspect, if you find that you're doing something wrong, what else can you do? Huh? No, correction, first thing I said, you correct yourself, but what else can you do? How to prevent not happening? But what is another important aspect of, if you've done a mistake in a Vaishnava etiquette, what is the first thing, what is you should do? Ask for forgiveness. It's a simple process. No? But sincerely, not sincerely ask for forgiveness. It's again a sign of maturity. Say, oh, I'm sorry. Ask for forgiveness. Now, when you ask for forgiveness, there was one devotee who was sharing about their own experience. It seems this devotee is they're also, both of them are very elderly senior devotees. So this devotee, was in a very objective way, analyzing something that this article is personally written, and had commented that, the other senior devotee written, and commented that this was very critical of that person's article, and said, this was not the right way to think, or something like that. See, at some levels, that individuality, that ability to discern right and wrong and apply that to individual situations is a necessary thing. That is how you, especially at some levels, you have to do that. If you don't do that, who else will do? Right? When you are in your younger years and when you are in the lower levels, very easy to say, just always differ. And it's easy to defer and move on. So this devotee, and then when they had some difficulty, they were introspecting and said, oh, it could be because I was critical to this person and this thing. Let me go and to speak to this person and say, sorry, I was very critical about these things. Please forgive me. And this senior devotee said, it's okay, but you have to cook some prasadam for me, personally yourself. And this person took it as, very nice, easy atonement they given me. And the person knew cooking. So they went and, cooked a nice feast for them, this thing like that. And, they fed the person, and then they both were happy and smiled and forgot. So ask forgiveness. Easy, right? Even if you've not done a mistake, ask forgiveness. If you've done a mistake, ask forgiveness. Either way, it's always a good thing. Right? So, stop doing introspect and stop doing what you're doing. Sometimes you may not have the ability to stop. Sometimes you may not have the ability to know that you're doing a mistake. Learn from it. Try to correct yourself. Stop doing. Try to beg forgiveness. Right? Then, after that, at that point, is there anything else you can do in that decision tree? Any other ideas? I think we have exhausted, right? Huh? Stay there means? Try not to commit it again. Yeah, try not to commit again. See, please understand something. The ability for a living entity to change, right, is not very easy. It's not like instantaneous or tomorrow you will change. With the holy name as impact on your heart, immediately you can change. Big changes we have seen. Prabhupada transformed so many people, so many things. Some things are easy to change, some things are difficult to change. Some nature, is very this thing. So you try to adjust and make sure that, you don't get into those situations. Sometimes, if something you're not able to do properly, you should try stop doing that thing. You try stop doing that service itself. You say, let me do some other service. Why do this service if I'm not good at it and if, I'm causing problems in that service? Those things also you can apply. So anyway, it's a matter of, if you apply logically in these matters, first thing is begin with, it is the mercy of the Lord. Then follow these particular steps. Then you will see, doesn't matter, whatever, reversals we face in life, we have some means of solace, some means of, properly thinking about it.
So we'll see here, as we think about this story, Indradyumna Maharaj, he gets the body of an elephant. And in this verse, it said, an animal body, is anyway Atmasmriti Vinashinim. Atmasmriti. Atmasmriti Vinashinim. Vinashinim means which destroys. Atmasmriti, remembrance of one's identity. In an animal's body, it is very, very difficult to remember that we are a spirit soul. Right? It's a body. Animal means there is a significant level of the mode of ignorance. Right? Like if you think about an elephant, the mode of sattva guna in elephant is also very high. Just like we say cow has a lot of sattva guna. Elephants also have quite a significant amount of sattva guna. If you see about how they behave or how they react and all that. When an elephant dies, the whole herd, goes over there. And, there'll be like a mourning ceremony we do, right? When somebody dies in our family. Like that, they'll all sit there, they do mourning for hours. For hours they do. And, if that person, like say, when she elephant dies and they have a baby or something, immediately the other matriarchs in the family, the sisters or this thing, they will adopt the child. They'll treat them just like their own child. Just like, human beings behave like that. Very little bit evolved, thinking. But it is Vinashinim. Still, it's a very difficult situation. So that's why we'll see here how he was put in the body of an elephant and how he got an opportunity to remember his past devotional service by the mercy of the Lord at the most critical junction. Okay, we'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Bol Premanande.
Govindam Adi Purusha